now we're caught up to the films I watched today, so we're almost done here. Um, I don't know if any of you watched all of these. Who knows? Or you're coming at this randomly and you haven't seen any other the videos. It's fine. This is Alice Rohrwacher's Lazzaro Felice, or Happy as Lazzaro, and Lazzaro. Oh man, I tried to do the double Z. It's hard. So Alice Rohrwacher, she made a film 2 years ago, 3 years ago, called The Wonders. That was absolutely gorgeous. I watched it during Year with Women. It was about sort of rural Italy and the way the country was trying to go back to celebrating tradition and its roots. And her previous film, I have not seen, but it was a very Catholic film about First Communion. So she is a filmmaker who is from um, Italy. Her father was German, but she's from Italy, and she's very interested in examining Italian um, traditions. I actually took a note that I wanted to. Oh, I'm sorry, cat. That I wanted to say about this movie, and I wrote it down. I don't always write things down on paper. This time I did. Okay, so there were a couple of things about this film that I thought were really fascinating. Um, it's about it's about a group of people who work on an isolated tobacco farm as sharecroppers. And from the get go, you should feel uncomfortable because you know that they're not being treated properly, and you're like, when is this set? Why are they still working like this? Why are the children still working? Why aren't they in school? Um, but none of that is questioned by them. They just are going for it. And then when one couple ends up engaged and they want to go out to the city and they're unable to, no one questions it. And then you meet the landowner, and she's played by um, Italian superstar Nicoletta Bracci, who's in Life is Beautiful and other Benicio del Toro, um, Roberto Benigni films, as well as Mystery Train. And the one, some of the other characters are played by one of the other main characters is played by Alba Rohrwacher, who is Alice's sister, and then the main character Lazzaro is played by Adriano Tardilio, and I'm not sure that I've seen him anything before. He is a very nice man, and he is taken advantage of by all of the other workers because he is so nice. You later discover that the landowner is illegally keeping them as sharecroppers and not paying them, and her family knows she's doing this, but she said basically when her teenage son is like, why are you doing this? This is not okay. She basically is like, they take they take advantage of Lazzaro the same way I take advantage of them, the same way everyone will take advantage of everybody. And it's wasn't it better for them to be at least all together and being taken advantage of? And then the teenage son is like, well, what if somebody isn't someone who would ever take advantage of anybody? Hence Lazzaro. So obviously they become friends, and then the film gets weird. Lazzaro falls down a mountain and wakes up unaged, but it appears anything from 15 to 20 years have gone by. Um, and now Italy is fully industrialized, fully, all of the traditions he remembers are gone, and it's him sort of dealing with that. Now, the reason I brought these notes out was was looking up sort of films about Italian um, like tradition versus industrialization, because there's some other films I've seen recently that are similar, like Ettore Scola's Ugly, Dirty, Bad, and just a few months ago, Lena Wertmüller's um, Seduction of Mimi. But both of those films are in the 70s when this was majorly happening. A lot of these changes were happening. And so sharecropping in Italy was outlawed in 1977. So was this film when was the illegal sharecropping happening? Because then it's 20 years later. It's sort of unstuck from time. You're sort of unsure. Although at one point there was a flip cell phone, so I'm guessing maybe it was supposed to be the 90s, and then today, I'm not 100% sure. But there is an Italian sort of phrase that is used now to discuss sort of class inequality, because in many countries, as we see here, as we're seeing with the riots in France, the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. Even as traditional ways of life change that are supposed to be for the better, they're not necessarily the better for everybody. So there's a phrase in Italy called "it was better when it was worse," meaning they didn't have cell phones and cars, etc., etc., and they were all living in these horrible slums, right? But they weren't being taken. But they weren't as poor in comparison to how rich the rich are, and things like that. They had roots. They had familial love. They had the family table. They had traditions, etc., etc., and all of that is bifurcated and lost now, and that's why they have this phrase. There were a couple of visual metaphors in this film that I was like, this means something. I have to look it up. So one thing that reoccurs multiple times in this film is a crescent moon, and the crescent moon in Italian tradition is a powerful warden against the evil eye, aka the devil. So when you see you keep the crescent moon near you, it keeps that away. It keeps evil away. You also have the crescent moon is the sign for Diana, goddess of the hunt, which leads us to the other reoccurring theme, especially in the second half of the film, which is the Italian gray wolf. So the Italian gray wolf was starting to disappear in the mid 70s at the same time that all of this industrialization was happening with the southern land workers moving up to the northern factories. As this was happening, the Italian gray wolf was going extinct. They were down to less than 100. And then they were highly conserved, and in the last 40 years, we're up to almost 2,000, but not quite. That's really shitty. So you have this wolf who also in Italian and specifically Roman tradition, Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome, suckled at the teat of an Italian gray wolf. So you have this film that's full of both neorealism, Italian neorealism, and magical realism, using traditional Italian things such as the crescent moon and the gray wolf to represent the unrest of the last 40 years in this changing Italian country. So there's so much happening in this movie. Is she saying that it was better when it was worse, or is she just saying that society in general will always find a way to take advantage of the goodness in people, and that's what's happening? I'm not sure. There's many ways to interpret this film. I think it is utterly fascinating. I think it is one of the few films I've seen all year that really truly utilized visual storytelling in a important way, and I think that's because it's a fairy tale. Especially the second half of the film is very much a fairy tale. Could be what is that one where he wakes up? It's the American one where he wakes up and I can't remember anything. It's gone, but you know what the story I'm talking about. And then obviously you have, I think Lazzaro is the Italian for Lazarus, and obviously Lazarus returns from the dead. There's a lot happening here. The other thing I wanted to point out is that it's shot by Alice Rohrwacher, who is a French cinematographer who shot some of my favorite recent films, including Pina and Beach Rats last year. And it's shot on 16 millimeter, and it is so gorgeous. Like, the colors are rich. The way in which she uses natural light to create the differing feelings between the first half of the film, where it's in this Italian countryside sort of feel, and then a different kind of natural light to capture the coldness of the city. Just chef's kiss. So good. She shot all of Alice's other films, and she's one of the great cinematographers. She's shot over 100 films. She is fantastic. Um, this film is just really good and really rich, rich characterizations, rich in visual metaphors, rich in what it has to say about a changing country, and whether or not they are better when it was worse, or it's worse now that it's better, or that it's never been okay because all of it was terrible. I don't know. But she's clearly a filmmaker who loves her country and has concerns about where it's headed. Um, I really liked it a lot. It is also on Netflix, so check it out on there.